confusion, so we're just going to be starting the meeting officially probably in about 5 minutes, just to give folks a chance to take the digital journey over to this neighborhood. So I've been asking people as just kind of a warm up, and kind of like we all just walked into the meeting room a little early and we're just chatting. What's currently bringing people joy? We have grandbabies in the space. We have the night skies. We have solving a plumbing riddle, perhaps. What else?
What brings you joy?
The weather has been beautiful.
Right? I think is it going to be 65 today? I love it. Trisha's saying coffee. Jenna, how about you?
Fall leaves.
Having people around.
Oh,
Awesome. That's great. And the fall leaves. Love it. What else is bringing people joy? Anything else? I was sharing earlier that for me, I think as the holidays start to emerge, the pace of life seems to change a little bit and maybe a little bit more of a downshift. Welcome, Jennifer. Nice to see you. Perfect. Let's see where we are. I am not familiar with WebEx as familiar as other folks. And so we'll just do a little bit of practice here so that we sort of have our systems down a little bit. I think everybody's probably found mute and unmute. Next to that on my screen is the stop video and start video. If you are able to and comfortable sharing video, that's deeply, deeply helpful. So thank you so much. If you look a little further to the right there, you likely see the raise hand, and it doesn't automatically lower your hand. So that's going to be on everybody to be mindful that way. But if you don't mind, head over to the raise hand or the little emoticons. And if you see an emoticon you like, let's just do a little practice there and select something. Perfect. Let's just make sure that all works, because we're going to be using that during our meeting today. Which is great. Love it. Oh, look at the little rabbit run. That's interesting. Okay. There's a whole industry there. Perfect. That's great. Adrian, what do you think? Do you think we've got critical mass? Do you think we're ready?
Yep. Hi, everyone. I was catching folks over at the team. Sorry about that. Looks like I made it over, but yeah, I think it's time to begin.
Perfect. That is great. So there's been a little informal introduction as we've sort of been talking in this space. But Kala, do you want to offer an official introduction and welcome?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Fran. Good morning, all. My name is Kala Oftedal, and I want to welcome each of you here and start by saying a huge thank you. One, your willingness to tackle this really complex problem, our project, if you will, within Waiver Reimagine in a really collaborative and concerted effort to help us be successful is really important to us. So we want to say thank you for joining us today. Again, my name is Kala Oftedal. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I have brown skin. Today I'm wearing black frame glasses. I have my hair up in a top bun. I have a purple shirt on. I'm sitting in my kitchen with a blue wall behind me. And I am a newer member of the Disability Services Division team within our Department of Human Services at the state of Minnesota. I'm in the deputy director role, supporting Heidi Hamilton as the director. And I started back in March of 2025. And over the past few months, I've really expanded my footprint in Waiver Reimagine as a whole. And so I'm excited to introduce today our facilitators, our co-facilitators, Fran Van Houten and Katie Pratt. Katie comes to us from Minnesota's Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution. And then Fran Van Houten is our professional facilitator that we've partnered with to provide ongoing support to help us all with how do we best engage and participate together, offer new or different perspectives, tend to the different interests or goals that we have in mind, provide some structure, and then support agendas and some rhythm and flow that align with the goals and the needs of the group. So with that, I want to say, again, thank you to all of you for participating. Looking forward to our ongoing relationship that we establish. And I'll hand it back over to Fran and Katie, and you'll hear from me a little bit later as well.
Thank you, Kala. That's wonderful. Katie, do you want to do a mini introduction and then I'll take it back?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So nice to see you. My name is Katie Pratt. As Kala said, I'm with the Minnesota State Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution and part of the team that's supporting this work and working closely with Fran and the DHS staff to make sure that this process is, that we can make a lot of headway. And I'm really excited about that and excited to be here with all of you.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm Fran Van Houten. And Kella, I have never introduced myself following the way that you did. I'm going to hitchhike on that a little bit. So my name is, I go mostly by Fran, but my name is Frances Van Houten. I live in Northfield. I've been a professional facilitator for what seems like my entire life, but officially for 25 years. I am a 60-year-old white woman with very short hair, glasses on and off, depending upon what I'm looking at. And I am seated in my home office, which is basically just got a plain old vanilla background. The door behind me is shut. I live alone, but I also shut the door just because it feels better. And as I was mentioning to people earlier when we came on, I just purchased one of those radiant space heaters, and this is the first test drive, and I have it on behind me. So if at any point it looks like I have quickly moved, it was to unplug it or something wasn't operating as planned. So I wanted to let you know that that's more about my space and not about what's happening in the meeting here. We have got a lot to cover in our approximately 90 minutes together. And so hopefully you were able to review the note that I sent to folks. So as we start up, if you're comfortable muting your phone or their video, that's helpful just in case there's any dogs barking in the background or somebody's blowing leaves out. We're not picking that up. During the course of our meeting and conversation today, it's very likely that other things are going to come to mind for you that relate to the project. So I always suggest if you're old school like I am and I use a clipboard and a piece of paper to sort of keep a sort of personal parking lot on those things that might pop up, or if you keep digital notes. But I just want to know that it's likely things are going to come to mind for you that we're not going to be able to take a deep dive on today, and want to make sure we don't lose them in the course of our work together. I want us to just kind of arrive together. So whether that's a deep breath or just taking a minute, I'm going to ask you to put the other mental chatter that may be going on in your brain kind of into soft focus mode. I don't know about you, but I came in running a little hot from doing some other things this morning. So it's nice to kind of center around that. And if you would, find the chat button on the screen, which is on my screen anyway, the furthest right little icon on the bottom there. And if you're willing, I would love for everybody to put in 1 or 2 words about kind of the energy they're bringing to the meeting today. You know, we'd be picking up on that vibe if we were in the room together. So let's just use the chat to get a sense of what's the vibe in the space. And I will read it. Curious and hopeful. Let's see. Curious and hopeful, curious and positive, happy, excited, a little nervous, interested and positive. I'm a little nervous too, Meredith, just so you know. welcoming, positive, wanting to make a difference for sure, curious, optimistic, open. Thank you. That's great. It's a great vibe to bring. Like, let's go. Let's get it done, right? Some excitement. Listening and hopeful. Great. Perfect. Give it another second or two for folks to put their additional remarks in, but I really appreciate all sort of the good energy that we're working with together. In my work, I always try to conduct a meeting. Oh, focused. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. I always try to conduct the kind of meeting that I would want to attend. So I'm hoping that we are going to be interactive over the course of our time together, interactive, curious, asking each other questions, spend a lot of time learning together, and that we leave these meetings feeling like we have greater insight, maybe more connected, and so working together in step for our mission purpose. So thanks for bringing all the good stuff that you put in the chat. A couple of things to make note of. One, this is a public meeting. So I'm going to ask people to be mindful about sharing any personal information. So anything that gets said here is currently being live streamed. So just kind of a heads up on that and something to remember. If you have any technical glitches or have any accessibility needs that need attention, Anna Jesberger is our point of contact there. And Anna is the person behind the MN logo within their hands up right now. So that's great. It's labeled DHDSD. So you are welcome to chat them and that will be monitored. So if there's anything that you need, we've got that covered. In terms of transparency, my role, as I think most of you know, is that of the facilitator, and I work in service to the task force. So I am sponsored by the state of Minnesota, but you all are my client. And so I am abundantly clear on that. So I just want to make sure that we know that. And all in all, I don't really have any long existing relationships really with anybody in the group except for maybe Katie Pratt. And even that is relatively new in terms of a couple of projects that we're working on together. But so I'm coming in as a new face into this space. A couple of things that you can expect from me is I tend to be direct and methodical. So my undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering. So you might see that part of my brain show up. And so when I slow us down to take things bit by bit, that is strategic. But also know that I recognize that we are working in an incredibly complex and dynamic ecosystem of a lot of interconnected parts. So I try to zoom in and zoom out on a regular basis. So you may notice that with me. I tend to come with a plan. And so I tend to have my plan and then want to go with the flow. And so my plan is a proposal in terms of how we're going to proceed together. I tend to lean on it as a resource. For our 90 minutes today, I basically have a 6-page facilitator agenda that's going to inform our work together. So that gives you a sense of what I'm bringing to it. And like I mentioned, we've got 90 minutes today. So I'm just going to share my screen to make sure that we're all in the same meeting at the same time. So let me find the share button here. And Katie, give me a nod. Can you see the slide? Perfect. That's great. So I have that our desired outcome for today is, and my little acronym is always, by the end of this meeting, we will have. So by the end of this meeting, I'm hoping that we will have established a baseline of understanding on the status of the Waiver Reimagine project and the role of the task force in that project. And I'm hoping that when we leave, we all understand that baseline to about a letter grade of a B+. We're probably never going to get to A+, so if we just can say that we're going to be at B+ level and move forward together, we're going to keep making progress. And so we are looking at the agenda on that slide. And so we kicked it off and started our welcome right around 9 o'clock. And we're talking a little bit about the meeting objective right now. In a minute, we're going to do some introduction of task force members and DHS staff and other folks that are on this call for today. We're going to do it in a little different way because we're probably not going to have time in our 90 minutes to get to everyone to do a more personal introduction. So we'll do it in kind of a dynamic way. And then when we're together face to face in December, we'll be able to take a little more time to get to know each other in a little more depth. Then we asked DHS, and I think Cal is going to be carrying the water on this, to just do a little bit of a briefing in terms of where the project currently stands from the DHS perspective. And then we'll have a little bit of question and answer involving everybody so that we're all kind of on the same page and achieving that B+ level baseline of understanding. And then we'll start to talk a little bit about next steps, plan for the next meeting, with a plan to adjourn at 10:30. So while I stop my screen share, and I've got to figure out that I don't mess this up somewhere, stop that. Just use the raise your thumb up or the emoticons. Are we all in the same meeting at the same time? Are all of our, are we expecting the same thing as part of our journey together today? Perfect. That's great. If we have any extra time, we will open it up to if there's other things we want to get clarity around, but that's going to be our primary focus today. So a couple of requests. One is I'm going to ask everybody to practice their best virtual meeting behavior. So if your camera works and you're comfortable being on camera, that's fantastic. That definitely makes it, I'll let you know, it just makes it easier to facilitate. I'm going to ask you to minimize distractions. So if you need to mute your phone, I sometimes need to clear some of the clutter out of my computer area. And I want to talk about the use of chat in terms of that as a distraction. The equivalent to me in the use of chat is when we're in a meeting and there's a whole side conversation going on among people, and then the volume starts to raise. So it really feels like there's two meetings going on. So I think it's super important that we keep the chat open, but we're going to use it strategically if you're comfortable with that. So if you have a particular question, feel free to drop the question in there. There may be times that I will ask you a question like I have and ask you to answer there so that we can sort of see where people's heads are at. So in terms of sort of good meeting behaviors, I'm going to ask us to use the chat strategically and use it if there's anything you need. I know that all of us are going to be monitoring it in case something pops up that we need to be attentive to. Your help raising hand is great, but if I see you and you want to jump in, I totally get it. We won't manage that unless that becomes a disruptive force. Because we are not going to be doing deeper introductions, anybody who takes the floor today, I'm just going to ask you to briefly identify yourself by name so that we start to associate who you are and your voice a little bit. We may be doing that for the whole time we're together over the next 18 months or so, but we're definitely doing it now. I'm thinking that right now, as part of this meeting, this is the most you are going to hear from me uninterrupted. So rest assured that this is a kind of one-time thing and not perpetual. So there are a lot of acronyms in the Department of Human Services and a lot of jargon. So on our journey together, I am going to ask that we be super mindful of our use of that, even if we assume everybody speaks the language. So we're going to slow down. If we use jargon or an acronym that you are not familiar with and we missed it and we didn't catch it in time, just put it in the chat with a question mark and we can make sure that we don't get too far down the conversation road with people not understanding what we're talking about. One other request. I'm going to ask you to be tolerant of feeling unresolved in our conversations. We are building the bridge here as we walk across it. And so there's going to be a lot of open things we open that we may not be able to land in either our time together or at least in the meeting, or kind of we have to sort of put it onto a future agenda. So our experience together may not always feel like we've tidied everything up and it's neat and we can sort of close the folder on that. So I just want to acknowledge that that may be a source of discomfort for folks. And that we're just going to have to work with that. Totally open to having conversations about that if we need to. But in some respects, that's kind of the nature of the journey we're on. I have a couple other things I want to say, but let me give a pause. Does anybody have any questions for me so far? Are we all goodish? I haven't overstayed my welcome yet? Okay, perfect. Linda, okay, Linda, were you raising your hand? You're good? You're good? Okay, perfect. That's great. Thank you. A couple of things that I think will help us work together in alignment and productively is I used to have a mentor who used to say to me, Fran, listen like an ally. And I love that as a means of listening. So to try to listen to each other as being on the same side of things. And what I find that helps is us to lean into curiosity. So the more that you can listen as an ally and listen with curiosity, that's great. I'm going to ask us to clarify what important words mean. So don't be surprised if you're making a point and if I interrupt you and I say, okay, when you use that word, tell us what you're talking about. Because I think a lot of times we use words that are the same, but from our particular vantage point, they mean different things. And that becomes important. And in some of my one-on-one interviews, I've shared with a number of you, I view the first part of our work together is to create a shared topographical map of the situation that we're facing, the challenge. And everybody has got a perspective on this shared and important challenge, but we're all coming from different places. So if we were visiting the Grand Canyon and we needed to make a topographical map of the canyon, some of us would be at the river's edge and some of us would be at the top of the rim, and we'd be reporting what we see. So in our work together, I'm going to keep leaning on that metaphor so that as we work together, we have a shared picture of the landscape, with everybody's perspective adding richness to our understanding. And what I have found is once we as a group have that picture, our path forward may reveal itself. So just be aware that part of my thinking is, do we have a complete picture? I may ask you to explain the reasoning behind your statements, questions, actions, so that we get beyond what is sort of showing up and to understand some of the thinking behind that. So don't be surprised if I ask and probe a little bit to understand better from where you're coming from. Let me pause there. Katie, what have I missed that you think needs to be said?
I think you covered it, Fran. I think as you discussed, we all may leave here today, since we we have a shorter amount of time with more questions and answers. This is really just getting us started, and December is going to be that deeper dive where we get more time to really explore, and hopefully people will feel comfortable reaching out either to you, Fran, or to me between now and December with anything we didn't cover today.
Perfect. That's great, Katie. Thank you. I would like to ask at least 3 people to unmute and jump in. And I would just like to know of what we've done so far in our 25 minutes or so together, what has resonated positively for you? So I've got my 3 fingers up so I can keep count. And if you prefer to put something in the chat, I'm fine with that and I'll read it out loud. But let's hear from 3 people what's resonated positively so far.
Do you just want us to speak?
Please speak. And I can't see who the speaker is.
Linda Fairchild.
Linda, thank you.
I like that we're coming at this as a collaborative group, understanding that it's a diversified group and that the means to the end is us all working as a unit.
Thank you, Linda. I'm a big believer that the most robust solutions work for all involved. So that's going to be my hope. Okay, and am I seeing things in the chat? So creating a map of current situation is a starting point. So thank you for that. The topographical map for understanding. Great. Anybody else want to jump in and just say what's resonating positively? Because that was technically 3. My chat is a little delayed. So listening with curiosity and the organization for this month has been good so far. Okay, great. That's super helpful to know what we need to keep doing. So that is fantastic. I want to just double check with Adrian and Ilian. Ilian is here supporting us as a note taker. So thank you, Ilian, for being here. Do you have the role already? Have you jotted down who on the task force is here, or do we need to do a little bit of a roll call? Adrian, I'm looking to you.
I'll say I've got the list of the attendees marked down.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much. So with that, if you are comfortable having everybody turn off their camera, so the lower left, and we're going to turn cameras kind of on and off in a minute in order to know who's in the room. So I'm going to stop my video, but I'm going to keep talking. So perfect. So if you are a member of the task force, please turn your camera on or raise your hand. Keep it on. Fantastic. So that gives us a sense of who is officially on the task force. Maura, I have you as on the task force, but I'm not seeing your camera or your hand. So I'm assuming that you maybe got distracted. There we go. Okay, perfect. There we go. I love it. And let's see. Perfect. That's great. So now I am going to ask I'm going to ask everybody to turn their cameras off again and lower their hand. And if you are a member of the task force with lived experience, firsthand experience with the waiver, either as a recipient, a family member, or a service provider, please turn on your camera or raise your hand. All right, look at that. That's fantastic. We've got that expertise in the room. So that is great. Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask you to lower your hand and turn your cameras off. If you are on the task force and in the Minnesota House or Senate, please turn your camera on or raise your hand. Okay, Brian, thank you for being here. That's fantastic. And you can lower your hand if you will. If you are on the task force and you work for the state of Minnesota, please turn your camera on or raise your hand. I should see Callis. I should see Katie's on. Oh no, you're not on the task force. That's right. Okay. So these are folks who are on the task force who work for the state of Minnesota. So do any of the four of you work for DHS? Who with their cameras on or hands up works for DHS? So Heidi works for DHS. Who else works for DHS? Perfect. Okay, and more. Perfect. That's great. So Heidi and more. All right, you can lower your hands and turn off your cameras. Who in this meeting space has been working in advocacy or support for 10 years or more? One, two, three. Look at that. 4, 5. Perfect. This is so great to see the level of experiences. Thank you, Jenna. That's awesome. So glad you're here. That's great. Perfect. So I'm going to ask you to lower your hands. You can turn off your camera. Thank you. If you were on the RAC committee, which was the Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee that predated the task force, please turn on your camera, raise your hand. Perfect. Go to Jay, Trisha. Excellent. So we've got a little continuity between those groups, some lived experience there that we can learn from going forward. So that's excellent. Thank you. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras off, lower your hands. If you are currently serving, Meredith, you good? Okay, good. If you are currently serving on another Department of Human Service committee or group related to Waiver Reimagine, please turn your camera on or raise your hand. Okay, Gretchen, Brian. I think Jennifer was perfect. Great. So we're going to have some crosswalking of knowledge that way, which is great because we're interdependent. Thank you. If you bring a tribal perspective, either formally or informally, could you raise your hand or turn your camera on? Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. Anybody else? So glad you're here. It's great. If you bring a rural perspective, either formally or informally, could you keep your camera, put your camera on? Great. We want to make sure we don't lose sight of that. So thank you. So I have one more. So if you can turn your camera off, and I'll have one more. If none of those questions have applied to you, would you please turn your camera on or raise your hand? Okay. So I think, Linda, some of those applied to you, so that we're great. So perfect. Adrian, can you speak to your role in the project just so people know who you are?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrienne Hannert. More than likely, you've received an email or two from me in the last 6 months. I am a project manager. I work in the Disability Services Division at DHS. Was in a similar role for the former Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee as well. So I'm doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff as far as getting folks set up in their appointment seats. Some of you may have just received an email, maybe while I was multitasking here, with reimbursement forms, if that applies to you for this meeting. not a policy expert, but I can tell you who to talk to and connect you to folks as you have questions here at DHS. I work really closely with Kala on the project, and I have for about working on Waiver Reimagine for about 3 years and just kind of coordination role. And I'm working with Jill on a lot of the kind of administrative work as well here. So it's a good segue. You think you all have my email address, and always feel free to reach out with questions. And if you need any help with anything.
Perfect. Jill, since you had a shout out, why don't we go to you next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jill Becker, and I use pronouns she, her, hers. And I am a soon to be retired state of Minnesota employee. And I am, as Adrian said, behind the scenes, helping do a lot of the behind the scenes things that you guys don't know going on. And just one of the questions I have for you, and maybe we can discuss this at the end of the meeting, is what kind of food you would like for your in-person meeting. Looking at maybe sandwiches and salads, so we can maybe talk at that at the end of the meeting. And my role at DHS is the executive and admin for Heidi Hamilton, the division director, and Kala, the deputy director. So thanks for all of you joining today.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Jill. Thank you. And Ilion, do you want to let people know why you're here?
Yes, my name is Elian Sorensen. I am with Public Consulting Group, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am here to take notes, help kind of capture what's going on in these meetings, and working with some other members of my team at Public Consulting Group to make sure that we are able to capture what's happening in the meetings and put that together in a report next year for your legislature.
Perfect. Thank you. So glad you're here, and thank you for your help. And if there's any confusion, Ilion, just flag me or raise your hand, and we'll make sure that we loop around and dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Kala, as you start to tee up your PowerPoint, let me just share with the group. So feel free to put your cameras back on, join us in the meeting, but I wanted everybody to have a sense of sort of who is in this space. So as before I turn the floor over to Kala, let me say that my proposal is this in terms of how we hear from Kala. I would love for her to be able to go through her PowerPoint uninterrupted once. Right. So we just get a sense of all of the content that's included in there. I think it's under 8 slides or something, right? It's pretty brief, Kala, right? Yeah. So you're not going to be waiting for very long. So if we go through the whole PowerPoint uninterrupted once, jot some notes down or what questions sort of get stirred in you. And then what we'll do is we'll start at the beginning again, and we'll go slide by slide pretty much so that we can address any questions as they emerge. But sometimes I think having the broad context before we go into a specific question can make things a little easier. So I'm going to just assume that people can be on board with that. And Kala, are you good to share your screen, or what do you need from me?
Yeah, I think we're all good. Adrian's going to share on behalf of me, and we'll walk through the slides, and I'll just let you know, Adrian, when we're ready to advance. Thanks, Fran. Again, my name is Cal Oftedal, Deputy Director, and I'm here to share out about where we're at with the project as it currently sits today. So I wanted to provide some more information. It's going to be brief. It's going to be high level, probably more of a planting of the seed. And there's likely some questions or comments or curiosities that you have as we go ahead. And we'll be able to kind of tend to those over time. But I wanted also just to be able to, again, give an update of where we're at today.
Okay. Kala, just to let you
Adrian,
know, we're not seeing anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm working on it. It
Okay.
appears that I needed to be a host in order to do that. I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
And
Good
I'll
deal.
just let people know that this is a meeting and not a show. So when these things happen, we just kind of roll with it because it's happening in real time and we're in this together, people.
Thanks for that, Fran. I may start with just the objectives as Adrian's working to pull that up, and then we can advance into the slides that have a little bit more content to them. But we have 5 particular objectives for today. So what I hope you all leave here with today is a better understanding of how we've really shaped or how the project has really gone from imagining or reimagining what's possible within our waiver system to a reality about how we're really creating some alignment and moving towards execution and implementation for January 1 of 2027. We'll share with you all our vision of Waiver Reimagine, particularly give you all a little bit of background and context about where the project's been at, and also what are our goals as we move ahead and what we're trying to accomplish. We'll provide some more point in time project status updates, particularly what has happened in Q3 and Q4 of 2025, and then what's to come here in Q1 of 2026. We are going to elevate some opportunities, so share with you all from DHS or DSD's perspective what we're hoping the task force may be interested in taking up as you look at the task force's duties as they're written out in statute. There's some opportunities that we see that maybe you all want to spend some time and energy focused in certain areas of those duties. And then we want to hear from you. So I'll leave you all with some probing questions and kind of pass it back over to Fran to help walk us through kind of some reflection or initial reactions to what I've shared.
Hey, Calla, let me jump in. I'm gonna accept the DHS acronym, right? Department of Human Services, but DSD is what?
Disability Services Division.
Perfect. Thank you.
Disability Services Division. Thank you for that.
And I'm assuming you all are seeing what we're supposed to be seeing now. Okay, great. Excellent.
All good. Thanks, Adrian. Next slide, please. So wanting to start off with a little bit of background and context about what Waiver Reimagine is. So Waiver Reimagine is the name that has been assigned to the work or the project of system level reform, transformation within our 4 disability waiver programs as they exist today. And those 4 disability waiver programs that we're speaking to are CADI, CAC, BI, and DD. And so with those acronyms, I can help share out CADI, Community Access for Disability Inclusion, CAC, make sure I get these right, Community Alternative Care, BI, Brain Injury, and DD, Developmental Disability. So those are the 4 waiver programs that we're talking about in reference here. So we are working to reshape those 4 disability waivers that I just mentioned into a 2 waiver system. We are moving into an individualized budget where we look at a constellation of factors that are considered into how we look at a person's needs, and then that gets derived into a budget or an allocation or a range of money that's allocated to an individual to pay for their services. And then we want to increase choice and control for people and ensure that we have information readily accessible to do that. Next slide, please. As we look at the goals of Waiver Reimagine, these first 4 should be rather familiar. It's the goals that we as a project have maintained over many years. Starting with the one on the left there, simplifying the system. The goal is to make things as easy to navigate as possible, where we reduce things that are really labor or time intensive, and identify ways to create greatest value while again making it as easy to navigate along the way as possible. We want to again increase control and choice for people. We want to advance equity, that we want to provide access for people regardless of where you live, the 4 corners of the state or there within, which county or tribe is serving you in your capacity, regardless of your disability, et cetera. We want to ensure that there is some type of standardization around how we're assessing needs and then distributing services to those individuals. We want to increase flexibility where possible. Again, kind of expand our options that people can use as we look across our system. And then building for the future is all about sustainability. How can we build something that not just goes live on January 1, 2027, but is sustainable and allows us to achieve our outcomes over time? Next slide, please. This slide and the next slide as well shows a little bit of kind of where the journey of the project of Waiver Reimagine, this reform over the past many years. So what we try to do here is there's been a variety of activities that have been completed since 2017 to date. We try to lump together what's happened from 2017 through 2024. And then in the next slide, we'll show you a little bit more detailed about what's happening just in 2025, 2026, and 2027. But on this slide, what it articulates is that starting back in 2017 is really when Waiver Reimagine kind of kicked off. There was an initial study that was done to do some research and some analysis and make recommendations about what are the potential opportunities here with our reform. And so that was done back in 2017. In 2019, we moved towards ensuring that legislators signed into legislation was that we wanted to consolidate and create a common service menu across all 4 current disability waiver programs. So that was accomplished then in 2021. And prior to that, what we had seen is that there were some services that were available on all 4 disability waivers, where there were some services that were not available on all 4 disability waivers. And so the goal was to create a common service menu where there were the similar menu of services available on all 4 CADI, CAC, BI, and DD waiver programs. In 2021, then, phase 2 was launched, which is all about what we just talked about kind of 2 slides ago, where we're working to achieve the reshaping of 4 waivers into the consolidation of 2 waivers. We're moving into that individualized budget, and we're increasing choice and control. And so that's really how phase 2 has been categorized. And that was signed into legislation or passed in legislation back in 2021. We talked about this a little earlier in the meeting here today, but RAC, Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee, was established back in 2022 to help provide recommendations about phase 2, about what does phase 2 look like, acknowledging that right now phase 2 is planned to go live on January 1, 2027. And then that's just what it highlights there is in 2024, it was announced that January 1, 2027 date is our go live. The next slide, again, then kind of brings us more current today, talking about 2025. Currently, we're in phase 2. Phase 2 is to launch or go live on or by January 1, 2027. And so we're currently working within this space of getting ready, doing a lot of design and planning, and moving towards execution. Our goal was is to post our draft waiver plan here in November of 2025. And then as we look into 2026, we want to go live with a portal, a person portal, which is a very similar concept to, for some people, we experience a MyChart with our healthcare providers, a MyChart that gives us access to information about our current health. And so the person portal kind of resembles a MyChart concept where it would have access to your waiver support or services that would be live in this portal that people can access. And then in 2026, also working on ongoing communications and engagement and training for the multiple audiences that are involved. So we have multiple partners in this work. So when we talk about communications, engagement, and training, we're looking at it from 5 different perspectives: people served, their families, lead agencies and tribes, providers, and then our own internal agency at the Department of Human Services. So we anticipate that whole ecosystem, all of those people, all of those partners will experience change. And so we're trying to account for that in our change management plan. And then in 2027, we're moving to a 2 waiver system, individualized budgets, and then again, that support planning or budget tools available to increase choice and control.
Kelly, can you just stop for a second? Because you've been using the pronoun we. And when you speak to we, who's involved in that?
Yeah, the Department of Human Services, I think, would be key, kind of high level umbrella. I would say specifically Waiver Reimagine really sits within our Disability Services Division. That's who's particularly tasked with this, seeking a lot of support and guidance from the agency as a whole.
Perfect, thank you.
Next slide, please. Our project focus highlights, so this highlights for you all kind of what happened or planned to happen in Q3, Q4 of this year, and then as we move into next year, what's top of mind for us. Again, these are highlights, higher level, but there are a lot of things underneath all of these pieces as well. In Q3, we adjusted our project governance. So when talking about project governance, all the different individuals or groups of people who are involved in the project either within Disability Services Division, DSD, or within the greater Department of Human Services as a whole. And so we've made some adjustments there and really established a governance that helps to support communication, helps to support delegation, and then decision making. We're working on still getting together that key messaging and shared language about words and language matters. So how can we elevate and ensure that we have a shared understanding of the words that we are using and what's really important to know at different phases throughout the project as we near January 1 of 2027. We've worked out our project plan or our project schedule with some revised dates. Much of what you just saw on the timeline or even here today has been adjusting those dates as we go along. And then work to sunset the Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee. As we look into this quarter, some things that we're actively doing or have been accomplished is today is the launching of our task force. So we're excited that you all are with us here today. Yeah, big accomplishment. So that's excellent. Developing a legislative report. So that legislative report is really a follow-up as part of RAC, Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee. Seeking their thoughts or their recommendations, their experiences, and putting that into a legislative report that needs to be submitted to our legislature ahead of seeking CMS approval for our waiver plan. We are looking to publish our draft waiver plan. We're looking to kick off our awareness campaign. An awareness campaign is really about communications and sharing out about what is our communication plan, again, across those 5 audiences that I talked about: people, families, tribes and counties, providers, and then our internal staff within DHS. We are planning for how we can best engage people. There are aspects of the project that we're looking for input on and feedback and to gain better understanding. And so we are looking to start to publish those, start to market those, start to make those available to people. And then that support range survey is all about a current engagement activity that's happening called our expert panel. So a few weeks back, around mid-October, we offered an opportunity for people, and it could be people served, family members, lead agencies, tribes, providers, et cetera, to participate in some engagement activities around what's called a survey. And that group is called an expert panel. So there was a group of 35 to 40 people that were selected as part of that expert panel to work with on one of our third-party vendors called HSRI, Human Services Research Institute, to participate starting in November all the way until June or July of 2026 to help provide input and feedback that's really specific to how we build out those individualized budgets that go live on January 1 of 2027. As we look ahead, we're in Q1 of 2026, we are looking to close the public comment period. So we're anticipating a 30-day comment period regarding the draft waiver plan. We plan to submit our new waiver plan to CMS. So that will be mindful of the public comment period. We will take into account and make some edits and revisions to it as needed, and then submit that waiver plan to CMS for their approval. And then we will begin our quarterly system updates. So when we talk about system, really around ecosystem and all of our partners, ensuring that we're providing communications in accordance with our communications plan that keeps people privy to what's happening and then what lies ahead. We want to launch an online feedback channel. So we're looking again to elicit any opportunities for engagement and pieces of information that we can learn from all of you to be incorporated. And then we want to collect feedback on our individualized budget exception process. So we're really looking to better understand where there are opportunities, again, to engage with you or others within our waiver system across the state, looking to engage people in those opportunities to provide feedback. Next slide, please. So when looking at statute, legislative language as it relates to the task force, there are 8 different duties in which you all as a task force can be focused on, where you all can have findings and recommendations on key aspect of Waiver Reimagine. And as we've talked about it within our Disability Services Division and Greater Department of Human Services, one of the things that we have highlighted is that within those 8 areas, of duties that are outlined in statute, there are 4 that are really jumping out to us as potential areas that you all may want to focus on or may want to spend some added time or energy on, at least initially, as you all kick off. And we've identified these as we think that they have really significant impact to the work that's going live January 1 of 2027. And so these are 4 of the duties that are listed in statute. And again, we want to make a recommendation to you all that you all consider these as maybe a starting point for your conversations and your discussion and some of your brainstorming as you look ahead in the upcoming months about what's to come for the task force. Next slide, please. So this is a point where I think I'll hand it back to Fran, but some of the questions that we have after speaking with y'all for a little bit today is just, what do you all want to know more about? How can we help to show up really well for you all as a task force over the upcoming months and support you all? What information is helpful to you all as we move ahead? With that, Fran, I'll give it back to you.
Perfect. And let's keep the screen share. And Adrian, I'm going to ask you to go back to maybe not the objective slide, but the first one that's got sort of meaningful content. And I want to respond to something that is in the chat, and that is Chris is asking, could we please have copies or links to all the state statutes and federal regulations that are used in the workplace? So you all should have received an email from me on, I think, Monday of this week. I sent it out. That was kind of like a one-stop shop of things. And in that email is the, sorry, my brain just froze. Is the link to the Waiver Reimagine Task Force website. And so on there is what we'll be using as sort of the information hub central for those things. So I know right now the state statute is linked on that, along with some other things. But we can make sure that we have the relevant federal content and all of that added. So we'll try to make sure that that's complete. So that's already there. Thank you, Katie, for adding. Don't know what.
I just added in the chat, I added a link. I got the link right, correct me if it's not, but to the web page on the task force, which has the legislation on one of the tabs there, and then the link that goes to the main Waiver Reimagine website with more information.
Perfect. Perfect. And Chris, I will double check to make sure that you are on the email chain. I sent it to the everybody that was included on this meeting invitation. So if you received this meeting invitation, you should have received it. You may also, all of you may want to just check your spam folder to see if I got spammed out. Evidently, there's a company called Rainmaker something, and they do some spam sending. So sometimes I get in cross purposes. So you just want to make sure that you are allowing me as a sender. Okay, so we're going to go through these sort of more slowly, and I'm monitoring the chat, but feel free to unmute. And if 2 people speak at the same time, I will do a little bit of air traffic control. But are there any questions related to background on the project? And feel free to raise your hand and give people a minute. Trisha, please jump right in.
Hello, everyone. I'm Trisha Brisbane. I am here as a family member. I was also on the RAC, and I was one of the chairpersons that were, I don't know, appointed, elected toward the end of our time together before the task force was created. And one of the really important things that we did is we wrote a separate report. Kala talked about, I believe that the report was mandated so that the legislators could understand what RAC had done thus far. And the tri-chairs actually wrote a report aside from that, so that we really wanted to make sure that it was reflective of the stakeholder experience. And I was under the impression that the report or reports were going to be shared with the members of this task force as kind of part of the how did we get here. And so I'm just wondering if anybody can speak to why maybe that hasn't been done, or if we should do it. I think there's a lot of valuable information about what got us to this point that would help us move forward.
Tricia, can I rephrase your question to just be, hey, Calla or Adrian, where does that stand in the process?
Thanks for that, Tricia. We do have the report. And I don't know that I probably need to look into this a little bit further about what the plan is to share it with the task force. I don't know, Adrian, if you have initial.
Yeah, I can speak to at least the what we know is that in legislation, we are required to submit a report to the legislature prior to seeking federal approval on recommendations related to Waiver Reimagine, that in collaboration with the Waiver Reimagine Advisory Committee. So in statute, that needs to go to legislatures prior to seeking federal approval, which will be in early 2026. Current plan is that that report, Tricia, would be included in a larger legislative report, the RAC Tri-Chair report. And I would look to Calla and Heidi. We can discuss if, and Tricia, I guess, as your Tri-Chair report, if that's separately, that's something else we want to just share to the task force prior to that going as like an addendum to the larger legislative report. Yeah, I hope that helps answer the question.
So rather than getting into the deep dive here, what I want to do is sort of take it on for let us carry the water on that. We know that it exists. Where is it going to stand? So thank you for like highlighting it, underlining it, Tricia. And so if you're comfortable with kind of like me catching the ball on that, so that we don't spend the entire half an hour left trying to figure that out. Got it. Catching the ball. And I see people in the chat talking about important for people to have the history. Totally get that. So no problem that way. I'm going to add it to the to-do list. Okay.
And I should just mention as well that Jennifer Bollinger was also a part of that whole process as a tri-chair. And so if, she wanted to ever weigh in on that, I think her perspective is hugely important as well.
Perfect. That's so great. I think all of this is a part of creating the topographical map. So no problem that way. We'll just figure out how to do it effectively for all of us. Any other questions related to this slide? I see other things happening in the chat. I'm going to ask our attention to stay here on the slides, and then we'll go back to the chat. But right now it feels a little distracting. So we'll get to the chat, I promise. Adrian, would you advance the slide? Perfect. Any questions related to this slide at all? Perfect. Next slide, please. So historical milestones basically up until today. Any questions on that? I kind of know where some of the folks in the group want to go, so I'm moving this along. Linda, please.
So do you believe that it's realistic that phase 2 can and will be implemented January 1 of 27? Seems to be it's just down the road. I'm assuming we need to have everything established by 2026 so that it can be part of the legislation. I just want to make sure we're all realistic.
Totally. Kella, do you want to fill that, Kella, to speak to what your thinking is on that? Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, thank you for that, Linda. So can you help me with? Are you referencing in relation to the legislative report that the task force? Is that the timeline you're
Yes, and
referencing?
yeah, to be able to have everything together within the next year to then present to them what we, as our collective task force, is proposing should be part of phase 2.
Right. And I think that's where this will likely go into some further conversations. But one of the idea that we have at this point, and what our recommendation would be, is that the task force help us to understand what aspects of Waiver Reimagine can be improved after the go live on January 1, 2027. Because you're exactly right that there are some dates in there that aren't quite cohesive, if you will, right? With the task force's legislative report due January 15th of 2027, that's after a phase 2 go live of January 1, 2027. So what our recommendation would be is, as you look to that slide that talked about kind of the 4 areas of recommended foci for the task force, that be done in a lens of what are aspects of the work that can be improved on related to these 4 areas after go live January 1, 2027.
And I'm just going to say right now, we do not have to agree. The whole purpose of today is to get a baseline understanding of DHS's perspective, and then we'll build out the rest of everybody's perspective as we proceed. But I wanted you to have sort of a baseline here. So we do not have to agree. Any other questions on this slide?
Hi, I'm Chris Erickson. I do have one quick question just to clarify what Kala said. Am I understanding this correctly? I want to make sure I'm understanding the intent here. When you say that our plan here is to offer what suggestions or ideas we may have as a task force for the after go live, not before. So our work is only impacting once this has been pushed through on January 1st, 2027. Am I understanding that correctly? That our work here is only to look at what changes could be offered or suggested after the go live, nothing before. Is that correct?
That would be our recommendation at this time, again, as it relates to the timeline of the report of the task force being due in after the go live of January 1, 2027. And I think that's a space where, like Fran identified, can be discussed further, right? Doesn't need to be agreed upon within here. But that would be our suggestion.
I'm struggling, and perhaps I'm just having a knowledge gap here. And not understanding our goal as a task force. And please forgive me if I misunderstood this. I thought our work was influencing what Waiver Reimagine would be at this point. And so please correct me if I'm wrong. Is it that we don't have an impact of what it is now?
Okay, so I want to pause for just a second. And Adrian, I'm going to ask you to stop the screen share so that we can see folks more completely on this. And this is exactly why we're having this conversation, so that we have a sort of a sense of why we're all here together. So I just want to make sure we can.
Trying. Anna,
No problem.
if you can figure out how to kick me off first, I'm more than happy. Oh, here we go. Okay, yep.
Perfect. New platform. Okay, so Kelly, are you comfortable outlining that?
I am. And again, I think this is really about a couple different things. One, where the project is at as far as in the planning and the execution phase. We are working towards kind of finalizing our planning and our design of Waiver Imagine. Again, mindful of the things that have been shared with us already from the engagements that have been done, including that of RAC. And so the project is really moving into more of an execution phase to get ready for implementation. And with the task force just getting up and started, the ability to have the amount of influence that we have on things that are already being built becomes more difficult. And so, not that it's impossible, but it does become harder to make those changes later on when things have been built. And so, again, I think the timing here is what's challenging, kind of in tension with each other, is the fact that the report is due after the go live, and that right now the project is really moving into an execution phase, and the task force is just getting going.
So I sense the energy in the room. I get it. Right now, I'm going to say we don't have to agree, and we're going to be definitely working in a complex space, figuring out the best way forward. Katie, I've got your hand. Tricia, I see yours. I also want to respond to something that is in the chat. So let me go Katie, chat, Tricia, and then Lisa.
Unmuting myself. I think just an observation I wanted to share. I think what a lot of folks on this meeting are identifying, and we were aware of this going in, is there's a lot of tensions going on here. There's a tension between the timeline and the work of the task. What are the exact keys? Where's the focus of the task force? These are all really good questions that need to be solved together and collectively. We're not going to solve them in the next. That's why we wanted to kind of,
Yeah, I got it. I got you. Hang on a second, folks. Katie, your audio is very inconsistent. Sometimes we hear you loud, sometimes we don't hear you at all. But let me see what the spirit is, and you can give me a thumbs up if I'm capturing it. And that is that this is exactly part of the work we need to do as a group, is to navigate this complexity that maybe is not ideal, but how do we move forward that way? Is that, okay, perfect. Got it. I want to acknowledge what Mike put in the chat. Can somebody describe the changes will mean to individuals and lived experience? I would argue that's part of our work, where it says, what are the impacts of these things? To me, that falls exactly into the center of part of what we will be doing together. So can't answer it now, but it's on the radar, and we'll talk more about that. I think I said Tricia, did I say Tricia and then Lisa? Is that right? Okay, thank you. You're stacked up like cordwood, and then Katrine.
Thank you. So after putting together the tri-chair report, which was more of a stakeholder interpretation of what had been done by the committee, I don't know if you recall, Adrian, but I did ask you, what's the plan for the overall report, to which you responded that your timelines have DHS submitting to CMS around February or March 2026. So I was under the impression that that report would be asking for approval of kind of everything that's been done so far. The task force is here now, and there will be another report that's done in January 2027, if I'm not mistaken. So again, if there's a report you're planning to submit, and we already have some information that would help this task force kind of level out and go, here's what's been done. Whether or not DHS has their portion done, the stakeholders did one. And I just really think that it's important that this group be privy to that information. And I mean, I don't think it should be upon any of the previous folks to have to distribute that. I think it just should be a task force. Let's do it.
Tricia, let me just double check on this. Are you referring back to the distribution of the tri-chair report?
Yeah, ultimately that was submitted to DHS to be part of their report, but it was done independently by the tri-chairs. So, I mean, I guess if people want it, we can share it, but I just think it'd be prudent that we as a task force say, hey, give us everything you've got so far, please.
Totally. So I just want to check with you from our process of working together, because I put that on my to-do list. Like you've already raised it. And so if I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding what you're saying. Tell me what you need from me when I say, I got it, it's on the radar, I'm going to move it forward. What else do you need in this meeting to sort of give me a little running room to have that pulled together?
I guess I would just say, I would like maybe you to check with DHS and see if they would like to present the entire report they plan to submit in February or March. I would assume that's the majority of it's done. Or if not, and it's not ready, at least share the tri-chair report. And if they don't feel comfortable doing it, just supporting the idea that one of us would, I guess.
Okay.
I don't want anybody operating independently here. I want this to be a
Totally.
collaborative effort.
Totally. I guess in our exchange here, Trisha, I just want to make sure, like when I'm catching the ball, I will keep you updated on where that stands. So I just want to make sure you're clear on that. Like I got that as a to-do item in terms of service to the task force.
And if I could just clarify, the purpose of that would be to give this task force the information of the details of everything that's been done. And because there were two different perspectives, clearly through RAC, being okay with sharing that in an effort to be transparent. Here's what the tri-chairs felt where it was important. Here's what DHS.
Perfect. To me, it falls right into the idea of a complete picture of a topographical map. So to me, it's one of those resources okay. I am monitoring time, so I'm going to move on. So we're good. So I've got Lisa and then Katrine and then a couple other hands. And then we're going to start to our initial approach on closing the meeting, but we'll catch everything.
Hi, my name is Katrine Bachmeyer.
Oh no, Katrine, sorry, Lisa was first.
Oh, sorry.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Harrison Heather. I'm the Ombudsman for Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities. And I don't know if this is a really practical question, but just if you would maybe indulge me in sort of the scope of possibility. I'm curious as to the timeline in terms of, I understand the report is due to the legislature January 15th or whatever the day was. But is there anything that would prevent this group from submitting it early before said due date?
The facilitator in me says, hell no, but let me go to the official answers, the official people.
Fran?
Yeah.
This is Katie. Is my audio fixed? Is that better?
It yet to be seen, but so far so good.
Okay. I just wanted to maybe give one piece of information that might help guide these questions, which is the intent of the December meeting is to do a charter and a holistic look at the background, what work is going to be done together, what are the possibilities, what are the timelines, to do a deeper dive in that. So we want to answer those questions with you, and we can't answer them all because as you're bringing up, they're complex questions.
100%. So thank you, Katie. Callie, can you answer Lisa's specific question?
I'm unaware of anything that would prohibit you all from submitting in advance of January 15th.
Perfect. I'm very aware of time. And want to be respectful to all of you. I also understand what's a sense of what's happening in the chat. And I want to honor Katie's observation that we are going to be continuing this conversation in December. So there's only so much more that we're going to be able to do here. So what I'd like to do is take Katrine's question. Katrine, I'm going to ask you to lean into the question part of it. And I'm going to ask you to try to be concise so we can start to talk about what's going to be happening in December.
My concern is that there are a lot more federal rules than what has been cited regarding the timeline and stakeholder participation requirements. And I'm wondering if the task force will have any access to some legal guidance, some additional federal guidance. I mean, I'm happy to share my research and my technical assistance with CMS directly. But I mean, simply providing the information prior to the CMS approval does not meet stakeholder federal requirements.
Okay, and the nature of your concern, just give me 2 more sentences on that so we all understand it, Katrine.
The federal court has determined that stakeholder groups must transpire prior in a draft form while the project is still in draft form and prior to the deliverables of the project. And based on my understanding of the timeline, that's happening almost immediately this month.
Okay. Okay. This feels like the start of a very rich and complex conversation and a dynamic journey. So I personally am going to take a deep breath. Katrina, I'm going to ask you to lower your hand because then I can't tell if you've got it up again. Yep, no problem at all. We are capturing what's in the chat, so we've got that. And so Anna, I want to make sure that you are going to capture that, and Ilian, if you can back up what we're seeing in the chat. All of the questions that are getting raised, from my perspective as a facilitator, start to form our conversational agenda in terms of how we're going to move forward together. So we are going to take these questions and organize them. I will let you know that I'm going to reserve a little bit of facilitator privilege to maybe reform them in terms of how they're delivered and try to make them an open-ended question so that we can be in some generative space that way in terms of figuring out our best way forward. But all of your concerns are on the radar. The activities that I'm seeing, like the tri-chair report and others, I'm catching the ball on and will report back to you. So I just want to let you know that when I put something in the parking lot or make it a follow-up, I understand that that is my job to do. Let me share with you, because I have that we have got like 7 minutes left, and this is a faster ending than I would generally like to have. I am going to see if share works. I need to become a presenter again. See if I can do that. There we go. Thank you, Anna. And so let me tell you this. Okay. Can you see the slide? Perfect. That's great. So our December 18th meeting is intended to be in person. And I believe that should already be on your calendars and the location should already be there. I've already had some people ask me to sort of help in terms of parking guidance, the closest place to park, to make mobility challenges a little easier. So we'll try to do some legwork in advance of that to get that figured out. And we'll confirm the details that way. The start time on your calendar may change because I've had a couple of requests in terms of folks that need to drive into the cities, maybe wanting to start a little later. So hold the time that is currently on your calendar right now, if you will, but I want to let you know that that's a heads up on that. We are going to build from our conversation today. And that's always going to be our process, is kind of building the next set of dialogue points. What it says here on the slide, as it says, is to get to know each other better. I just want you to know we're not going to be spending half the day doing icebreakers and singing Kumbaya at the end of this. I just rest assured, we're not going to be burning time like that. But the way I hope we learn from each other about the collective assets and knowledge base and the brain trust that we have in the room. And like I said, the most robust solutions are going to work for all involved. Did the slide change? Perfect, that's great. So a couple of things. One of the primary things we're going to be doing in December right now is to get our task force charter identified, lined up, cleaned up. So the task force charter is going to talk about things like how we're going to make decisions together, how we're going to work together. And so I'm trying to pull together a draft of that reads a little easier, and hope to have that to you all in the task force in early December for you to offer a bunch of comments with enough time to just try to integrate the comments so that we'll have a draft out to you before the meeting in order to sort of get your perspective, fine tune that, and hopefully be able to advance that productively. Some of the things we want to think a little bit about are our meeting dates, the use of smaller group discussion groups in order to take deeper dives in certain areas of interest, our meeting platforms, to what degree are we virtual, to what degree are we face-to-face. I already mentioned we want to finalize the task force charter. We want to select co-chairs. We want to have a plan for public input. There's a whole bunch of other things. So at this point in time, let me just see. Okay, perfect. At this point in time, my request to you all would be this. If you could email me directly, what are the questions that are coming to mind? What are the questions that have to be answered along this journey? Like almost do like a brain dump, almost like open up and let me see what's crawling around in there. That would be super helpful. Now, I will let you know that I am looking at this from a process perspective. So if you're going to send me statutes and legislation and all of that kind of stuff, that is not a place I'm going to take a deep dive. I just want to be abundantly clear. I'm looking at how do we put the pieces together so that this group can do meaningful, productive work in the most effective and respectful way possible. But it really helps to know, what are you concerned about, paying attention to, or want to know more about? So the more that you can send that to me is great. You should already have my email. I'm going to put it in the chat again. So we've got that. So we don't have to agree. And if our goal was a B+ understanding of the status of the Waiver Reimagine project and the role of the task force, I am going to ask everybody in a minute to put their answer in the chat, and we're all going to hit send at the same time. So I'm just want to flag this in the chat. So I'm doing, what you'll see me do periodically is what you just saw me do in the chat is just kind of put a header there. So I know that the answers afterwards relate to that. So that's just a little bit of method that I use that way. So if you could lean into the chat, and when I ask you to hit send, we'll hit it all together. So the question is, what letter grade are you leaving with as it relates to understanding the status of the project and the role of the task force? Even if you don't agree, to what degree do you understand it? So put your letter grade in the chat, and I am going to ask you to hit send in 3, 2, 1. Perfect. This is super helpful, really helpful to know that we've got everything across the board here. This is so useful. So thank you for your candor that way. We really have everything from A to F. So for the folks who can't see the chat, we've got it all there. So we're all in a different place, kind of at the same time. That becomes incumbent on me to try to develop a process with Katie that gets us all in the same space, working together in alignment. So thank you for that. Really helpful. I understand that people may be leaving feeling unresolved and frustrated, but it would be helpful again if we use the chat and for you to just say, answer the question, what worked? So this is a process question. In terms of our time together today, if you could just put what worked that we should try to keep doing as we work together this way, that is super useful to me. I have that it's 10:30, so that was the planned adjourn time. So I understand if you need to jump. Thank you all for showing up with all that you brought. I'm going to have you keep putting things, what worked in the chat. And I think that we are done for now. So I'm going to say, Anna, I think it's okay for you to take us off the YouTube. Is that fair? Perfect. Does anything else need to happen in this space?